Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're looking at some really unsettling source material. It gives us this rare, almost direct view into the mind of a serial killer on death row. And we're not just talking about, police files or court documents. This is about his own online writing, something he kept up for years. We're focusing on Joseph Duncan III, who's currently awaiting execution, and specifically his personal blog, a really chilling thing he called the Fifth Nail. This wasn't just a diary, it was like his stage. He talked about everyday life, his political anger, but it also, it maps onto his worst crimes.
Yeah, and what's so striking here, and honestly quite disturbing, is how immediate it feels. Usually we're looking back, trying to piece things together after the fact. But Duncan's blog, it's like a running commentary, a primary source, really. You see him trying to justify, to frame his actions, even from prison years later. It's quite something.
Okay, so before we dive into the blog itself, let's unpack the timeline of his actions, because that context is, it's crucial for understanding what we find in his writing. Joseph Duncan, born in Tacoma, Washington, 1963, and his documented criminal history started young, really young. His first known major offense was in 1978. He was just 15. He sexually assaulted a 9-year-old boy at gunpoint.
15 years old. And it escalated quickly from there.
It did. By 1979, he's in juvenile detention, and he actually confesses to a therapist, says he'd assaulted more than a dozen boys.
Over a dozen. And that's just what he admitted to at that point.
Right. Then 1980, arrested again, gets a 20-year sentence. But here's the really critical part. He gets out early.
Released after only 14 years.
Yeah, just 14. Cited for good behavior. Can you believe that?
And that release in 1994, looking back now, we connect it to a really terrifying period, cold cases. The documentation suggests that, during this time he was free, specifically 96 and 97, he's believed to be responsible for the unsolved murders of 3 young children.
Children whose cases weren't linked to him until much, much later, after his 2005 arrest.
Exactly. Including, and this name really sticks out, the 1997 murder of 10-year-old Anthony Martinez, only solved years after the fact.
So the pattern of offending, release, offending again, it just continues. Fast forward to 2005, March. Duncan gets charged with molesting 2 boys back in Minnesota.
Okay, so he's back in the system facing charges.
Briefly. He manages to post bail, $10,000, apparently got help from a lawyer he knew.
And
then by April, he's gone. Just skipped town, headed west.
Jumped bail. And we know, tragically, what happened next.
Yes. His own writings later confirm his mindset was already shifting towards something extreme as he fled. This decision to run, it directly leads into the horrific crimes in Idaho, the ones that ultimately put him on death row.
The speed here is just alarming. He skips bail in April, and by May, the Idaho murders. It's incredibly fast.
So May 2005, police respond to a scene in Idaho. They find the bodies of Brenda Groen, she was 40, her boyfriend Mark McKenzie, and her 13-year-old son Slade.
Horrific scene. They were bound?
Bound, yes. All suffered severe head trauma. But the immediate, terrifying discovery was Brenda's 2 younger children were missing.
Dylan and Shasta Grain. Just gone.
Exactly. A massive search starts. It goes on for weeks. 7 weeks, actually.
7 weeks. That must have been agonizing for everyone involved.
Absolutely. Then, a breakthrough. Shasta Grain, the little girl, she's spotted at a Denny's restaurant, of all places.
At a Denny's? With him?
Yes, with an unknown man. Staff there were incredibly alert. They recognized her from the missing persons flyers that were everywhere.
Wow. So they called the police.
They did. And that call led directly to Duncan's arrest. Finally caught.
Thank goodness for those staff members. But what about her brother, Dylan?
Tragically, that part of the story doesn't end well. 2 days after Duncan's arrest, they found Dylan's remains.
Oh no, where?
At a remote campsite way out in Montana. He'd been killed, shotgun blast to the head.
Just devastating.
Completely. The legal process after that was swift, though. For the Idaho crimes, at least. Duncan was sentenced to death. The jury only took 3 hours to decide.
3 hours. Speaks volumes about the evidence, I suppose.
It really does. So you have this picture of extreme, calculated violence, but at the same time, he's writing a blog. It seems impossible to reconcile.
It does, and that's where the fifth nail comes in. That's the core psychological puzzle here.
He started it back in January 2004, so over a year before the Idaho murders.
Right, and the name itself, the fifth nail. He had this whole explanation, claimed it referred to some kind of hidden, secret nail used when Jesus was crucified.
Like he possessed some deeper truth nobody else understood.
Exactly. Classic grandiose thinking. And the early posts, they're just jarring when you know what comes later.
On one level, it's almost mundane. He literally details his day, minute by minute sometimes. Even writes that serial killers, like everyone else, struggle with the snooze button.
The banality of evil, right there, mixed with these attempts at deep thought.
Yeah, he gets philosophical. Says the blog is his connection to who I am and who I am becoming. He even references that movie, The Butterfly Effect.
Trying to sound profound, but
Yeah.
then mixed right in with that, you see the narcissism plain as day.
How so?
Well, he complains, petty complaints, about his website stats. He's genuinely annoyed that Google isn't indexing his site properly, that he's not getting enough hits.
Wait, really? A man planning murder is worried about his Google ranking.
It's unbelievable, isn't it?
Yeah.
But it fits perfectly. He needs that external validation. He needs to be seen, to be acknowledged, even by a search engine.
It's a terrifying glimpse into that mindset, that need for attention.
It really is. If his important thoughts aren't getting noticed, his ego feels attacked. And that kind of narcissistic injury, it can definitely precede lashing out. He needs attention, positive or negative, just attention.
And it wasn't just website stats and philosophy, right? He got political too.
Oh, yeah. Standard complaints about taxes, sure. But then he takes this really sharp, self-serving turn.
What do you mean?
He starts comparing things like sex offender registries, Megan's Law, and even special license plates for offenders. He compares them to Nazi Germany.
Seriously? Nazi Germany?
Seriously. He actually dedicated posts to defending sex offenders as, like, a persecuted group, while being one himself and planning far worse.
The disconnect is just staggering. How does someone actively planning horrific violence see themselves as the victim?
That's the textbook definition of his pathology, isn't it? Projection, cognitive dissonance on a massive scale.
Yeah.
He has to create a reality where he's justified or even noble.
And it gets even more bizarre. Just before the Idaho crimes, March 2005, only 2 months before,
What did he write then?
he posted that he was a happy person, that he loved his life, loved the world, even wrote, "God does not make mistakes."
Wow. Building this complete facade of normalcy and self-contentment right before everything fell apart, or rather, right before he tore everything apart.
But that facade, it couldn't hold. It finally cracked just days before the Idaho murders, May 11th, the last entry before his arrest.
And what did that one say?
It's chillingly clear. He wrote he was scared, alone, and confused. Then the intent laid bare.
What was the exact wording?
He wrote, "My reaction is to strike out toward the perceived source of my misery, society. My intent is to harm society as much as I can then die."
Explicit. A declaration of war, almost. Right there, online, for anyone to see. And that was the last post before he was caught.
The last one before the arrest, yes. But incredibly, the blogging, it didn't stop there. Not even close.
He kept it going. From prison.
Or someone did for him. After he was caught, a new version popped up. The Fifth Now Exposed Confession.
Exposed confessions. Okay. What was on this one?
From prison, he apparently started directing content for it, issuing corrections to newspaper articles about him. He specifically targeted the Spokesman Review.
Trying to control the narrative even then.
Exactly, and constantly pushing this image of himself as like a victim in some ways or a model citizen when he wasn't, quote, in trouble.
And this is where the official diagnosis really clicks into place, isn't it?
Right. Psychiatrists diagnosed him with sadistic personality disorder and antisocial personality disorder with narcissistic traits. Though, crucially, they found him legally sane.
That sadistic element. It explains the need to correct and control, even humiliate the people writing about him, the media, the system. His version has to be the truth.
And it wasn't just minor corrections, was it? The prison blog kept getting updated years later.
Yeah, the source material points to updates as recently as 2019. January and March 2019.
And the content, still focused on controlling his story.
Disturbingly so. He goes into graphic detail, apparently, about that 1997 murder, Anthony Martinez, the 10-year-old boy.
From 1997, why revisit that decades later from death row?
And he even apparently wrote about his failed attempt to flee to Mexico after that murder.
It's baffling.
Unless it's not about remorse. It's about cementing his legacy, his narrative. He wants to be the ultimate authority on his own crimes. It reinforces his sense of importance, maybe.
Which brings up the question you hinted at earlier, how? How is he doing this from death row without a computer?
Exactly. The sources indicate that early on, after his arrest, the posts were attributed to someone called Silenced.
Okay.
But since around 2014, the updates have been credited to Agent Cooper.
Agent Cooper? Like from Twin Peaks?
Seems like it. The working theory, the strong hypothesis, is that Duncan is writing incredibly detailed letters from prison.
And Agent Cooper, whoever that is transcribing them, posting them online.
Pretty much. Acting as his conduit to the outside world, keeping his narrative alive.
An accomplice, effectively. Still helping him control his story.
Which allows for maybe the most revealing part, his direct interactions with critics online via this proxy.
What kind of interactions?
The documentation gives an example. Someone called him out on the blog, said he was trying to philosophize murder and child abuse.
A pretty fair criticism, I'd say.
You'd think. But Duncan's reply, posted via Cooper, was just pure arrogance, dismissive.
What did he say?
He basically said the critics' view was limited and shallow. Why? Because they failed to see beyond the hype of the immediate victim.
Failed to see beyond the victim. Are you serious?
Dead serious. He genuinely framed it like he was engaging in some high-level intellectual discussion, using murder and abuse as mere data points.
And the critic just couldn't grasp his genius.
That's the narcissistic trait right there.
Yeah.
Condescending, superior. He truly believes he's operating on a different plane. And anyone who condemns him is just simple-minded, incapable of understanding his complex perspective.
It's profoundly disturbing. The lack of empathy is absolute.
Precisely. And remember, despite these clear personality disorders, the courts found him legally sane. He understood what he was doing was wrong.
So he's currently serving, multiple life sentences.
11 consecutive life sentences, plus the death penalty from the federal case related to the Idaho crimes. But his digital voice, through this accomplice, somehow continues.
So we've looked through this chilling documentation, the history of Joseph Duncan III, and this really unique, disturbing window provided by his blog, The Fifth Nail. The amount of writing, his own words, before, during, and long after the crimes, it gives such a raw look into how a mind like that constructs its reality.
It really does. And given how extensive it is, how public, how Duncan himself, even from prison, insists it's all for historical context.
Yeah.
It really leaves you with a difficult question. It makes you wonder, what responsibility do we as a society have when we engage with this kind of material, when we read a killer's own narrative, knowing that maybe our attention is exactly what he craves, that it feeds that need for notoriety.
That's a heavy thought to end on, a very important one. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the source material today. We hope exploring this gave you some clarity, some insight into this disturbing case. If you found this analysis valuable, please do like this video, share it, and subscribe to our channel, Horror Docs, for more content like this.